In this video, I will share with you my approach towards motivation. The truth is, motivation doesn't really operate the way most people think it does. So I think that a lot of our approach towards motivations tends to be slightly flawed and it ends up not working out. So how do I stay motivated? I simply don't rely on motivation at all. I made my outcome completely non-negotiable. Like, it was a must. So I did anything it took to get there. I essentially had systems in place that made sure that even if I was delayed in getting to a particular milestone on the journey, I was still making progress. Even if it was slower progress, it was still progress. The problem with motivation is that it assumes that you have to feel like doing the thing, whereas with discipline, you do the thing no matter how you feel. The harsh truth is that 4-year-olds are the ones who tend to do what they feel like doing, whereas adults end up saying, you know what, this has to get done and I'm gonna do it. Another problem with motivation is that during a weight loss journey, the feedback loop in that system is too large. It's too far apart from like where you make or do the action to where you have the outcome. When we do something that we don't want to do, or we see it as being too painful and the results of our efforts are too far off in the future, that's when we start to feel a lack of motivation, or that we look for motivation to do the thing. But in reality, what really motivates us actually is the result from doing the thing. Most people assume that you have to be motivated in order to do the thing, whereas in reality, it works like this. You do the action, you have an outcome, a result. And when you see the positivity of that result, when you say, wow, like I've accomplished this, that's when you get that feeling of motivation to do the action again. And then you get more results. The problem, especially in the beginning of a weight loss journey, is that most people expect to have that feeling of motivation at the beginning before they even take that first step. And that's where we have to actually start to utilize discipline and completely throw motivation out the window. Here's an example of when a feedback loop is very, very small and the reward from the action happens very quickly, and how that works. So for example, let's say you have a bag of your favorite chips in front of you. For me, it was always Doritos. I loved Doritos. If you have, let's say, a bag of Doritos in front of you and you have a chip, you get that feel-good feeling immediately after you do that action, which then motivates you to grab another chip, and probably even more so intensely because you're like, oh, that first one was so good, right? You constantly have the action, the outcome, and then you're motivated to repeat that action. And that's what a feedback loop is. With weight loss, it's so far removed off in the future that oftentimes like we lose sight or don't even feel that positive result. And one of the ways to mitigate that is just make milestones along the way that will help kind of reinforce that feeling of like the action that you're doing has a positive result and it repeats. But because the big picture result is so far into the future, you have to rely mostly on discipline, that is doing what you have to do to get things done, regardless of how you feel. How do we cultivate discipline? Number one is to start thinking in terms of identity. So how you think about yourself and the self-talk that you have, it literally creates the reality that you live in. Controlling how you think is one of the most fundamental steps you can take in having more discipline in life. For example, start by stopping to say things like, I can't do something, and start saying, I don't. Instead of saying, I can't eat that bag of chips because I'm on a diet, say, I don't want to eat that bag of chips. When you say, I can't, what you're doing is you're externalizing that reasoning. And when you do that, it becomes a force outside of yourself that's controlling things. And then that item becomes the forbidden fruit. And we all know what happens with the forbidden fruit. When you say, I don't, you're internalizing that reasoning. It becomes your responsibility and a part of who you are. So the action that you're taking makes sense, is that, you know what, I don't want that chip because, you know, I'm healthy and I'm fit. And to your brain, it makes sense. It lines up. It's very coherent. Your actions reflect who you think you are. So therefore, it just becomes all that much more easier. Whereas when you go and I can't, There tends to be a struggle with like what you want to do because it conflicts with your self-image. So number 2 is have a very strong why. Why are you really doing this? Make that reason very simple, very bare bones. It should be something that when you think about it, it just kind of like lights a fire inside of you. And the key is to make that reason internal, not external. So by internal, I mean something along the lines of so that I feel good in my own skin. Whereas external is something like to get the revenge body. External reasons are not sustainable in the long run, not by a long shot. Yes, they tend to be intense and very passionate reasons, and initially it gives you like this burst of energy, but 99% of the time, those reasons disappear, and so does the motivation for you to keep going. The revenge body crowd does things because they haven't made peace with the relationship that ended. They somehow want to hurt that person by making them feel some kind of way, like they're losing out or missing out. So it comes down to still having sort of upsets about the end of that relationship. So therefore, you're going to punish that person by making them feel like they lost out. So what happens if, let's say, you meet someone new and you fall in love and say, oh my God, this is like the love of my life. Or you make peace with the breakup and say, you know what, it is what it is, not meant to be. And then you become indifferent. And then what? Your external why has now disappeared and now you're left to have to come up with something new. So when you're crafting your why, make sure that it is you-centered, that it's about you, something that's going to benefit you, that it's going to change your life, that it's going to have an impact for you. This ties into number 3, which is to make what you're doing meaningful. And you do that by making the why kind of part of the big picture of your life. Like, how does your weight loss goal tie into your big picture dreams, your kind of life aspiration? So let's say, for example, you have kids. The big picture could be, oh, you want to make sure that you set a good example for your kids so that they don't have to deal with obesity in their life and all the pain and the discomfort that brings with it. So you want to set a good example for them. That's a pretty strong, meaningful why. Or for example, you want to feel good when you go out and try on new clothes. Maybe in the past you tried on some things and like either nothing fit you, or if you found something you liked and you put it on, it just looked horrible and you felt horrible about it, and it just made you depressed and kind of made you feel not good for like a really long time, which is what happened to me. I used to go shopping and then I would put something on, and first of all, most of the time there really wasn't anything that I liked or that fit me. So maybe you say to yourself, you know what, I never want to experience something like that ever again in my life. I want to feel the opposite of that. So maybe you promise yourself, I never want to feel that way again. To other people, your reason doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be this huge thing. It could be something small, but it could be the most meaningful thing in the world to you and how that makes you feel. So you need to make it meaningful for you and you alone. And the last point, number 4, is do something that you enjoy. If you hate running, don't run. Do you like yoga? Do more yoga. Do you not like high impact activities? Okay, try swimming or walking. It doesn't matter what it is. If you don't like doing something, it is unlikely that you will stick to it. You may be able to stick to it, you know, for a few days, a week, maybe even a month if you're lucky. Like, for example, I don't like to work out at home. And during this pandemic, for me, working out at home was a nightmare. And I ended up, no matter how many times I got into it, I ended up distancing myself away from it more and more and more. You don't like to meal prep? Okay, that's fine. There are other ways that you can control your food intake. Maybe you say, okay, you sit down once a week and you make a menu for the week, but then you cook things each night, fresh. You know, maybe you can prep the ingredients to make things a little bit easier, but that's a way of controlling what you eat. And the point is that there isn't a one size fits all in this. It has to be something that works for you. So just because running worked for somebody else, it may not work for you. No matter how effective it is, if you're not doing it, it won't work. So you got to make sure that you say, you know what, I like this, I don't like that, I'm going to focus on this instead. Be open-minded, try new things. You may discover something that you like to do. You'll maybe find some things that you really don't like to do. And knowing what you don't like is just as valuable as knowing what you do like. And also, maybe from time to time, try doing something that in the past you didn't like, because who knows, maybe you'll change your mind in the future. The more you like to do something, the more likely you are to stick with it for the long haul. So even if Even if the things that you like to do end up making your weight loss journey slightly bit longer, that's okay. It's better to do something for a longer period of time and still accomplish your desired outcome than to do things that you hate and then just quit and just give up on yourself. To quickly recap, motivation is short-lived and it is feelings-based, so we can't rely on it during a weight loss journey, but what we can rely on is discipline, and that's by creating an identity around the outcome. So for example, I am fit and healthy, therefore I act this way. By having a very strong why and making that why tie into the bigger picture and making it very, very meaningful to us. And also ensuring that we do things that we actually like to do so that we can do them and sustain them for a long period of time. I also would like to add 2 more things that I think are kind of important to note, and that is that motivation can become a trap in 2 ways. And one of the ways is that it becomes an excuse for us. And when our brain has a reason for why we do something, it tends to make us feel more okay about that decision. So for example, if you say, oh, I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to meal prep, or I don't want to eat healthy because I just don't feel like it, I don't have any motivation, the brain will say like, oh, yeah, that's a good enough reason. Okay, well, whatever. And then that ends up sabotaging the progress that you're inevitably going to try to make or that you're making. And the other way that motivation can become a trap is if, for example, you watch a lot of motivation videos and a lot of like inspirational stuff on, YouTube or whatever, Instagram, if you watch a lot of like before and afters. So if you spend too much time on those things, it'll give you the sense of like accomplishment that you didn't actually earn. It's okay to use those things as like a momentary spark of like to be inspired or maybe motivated in a moment. But if you spend hours upon hours upon hours just like watching motivational material, that can become the trap that prevents you actually from doing what you need to do to accomplish your desired outcome. So just be wary of that. Use it as a little spark, but don't make it the whole fire. Thanks so much for watching the video. Give it a thumbs up if you learned something new or if it helped shift your perspective in even a little bit. Or if you want to support me and the channel, make sure to subscribe and put the bell on so that you get notified every time I post a video. Thanks so much. Have a stellar day or night, and I'll see you back here in the next video. Bye.